There's two things in this world that COD players hate most in life: change and the way that things are. So I realize that when a new game comes out, I kind of have to take it with a grain of salt, because there's going to be somebody out there, no matter what they do, that's going to be unhappy. And I get that to an extent, but also I've played quite a bit of the game, and I walked away feeling maybe a little bit worried about a lot of what Black Ops 7 is doing. I'm a little bit concerned about Black Ops 7, to be quite honest, and in this video I wanted to explain why. This is coming from somebody who's played a lot of the MP between Treyarch and the COD Next event. I've played quite a bit of the multiplayer. I've also played a lot of zombies, whether it's Ashes of the Damned or I've also played Farm Survival, and the only thing I really haven't played is the co-op campaign, which I am still quite interested in, but I do feel like I have a decent grip on what the game is going to offer, and I also wanted to wait to give impressions until I got home from COD Next. I didn't want to give them right away, because I think it would be a bit of a mistake to try to give clear, digested responses when you're at the event, surrounded by the glamour of it all, adrenaline's rushing, and you just got off this high of, playing all this stuff early and having a lot of fun with it. But I've been able to come home, digest what I played, and think about it a lot, and I wanted to give you guys my honest reactions to everything. Now, I realized it's important for me to detach what I actually played objectively versus how they handled us playing it at the event. As you guys know, I'm primarily a zombies YouTuber, but I do actually play a lot of the other modes, just not as deeply as zombies. That's obviously my thing. And if you know anything about the event, that zombies was very poorly handled as far as I'm concerned. I mean, it felt like at every possible moment they were doing whatever they can to keep us off the mode that we actually wanted to play. It wasn't just Dalek, it wasn't just Noah, it was myself, it was everybody. Everybody who actually wanted to play zombies was constantly being pulled off it to play something else. But I actually did get one really solid game in start to finish. And I know I'm not the only one who feels this way, that we don't feel like we were in an environment that really allowed us to flourish and do what we do best, and to present the game in the way that makes sense to our community the most and allows us to go deeply into the thing that we actually want to play. We very rarely ever got the same rules as far as communication of who can play what and how long you can play. So I basically got 1.5 real games of zombies, and I got some decent games of multiplayer, but that was really about it. Otherwise, I just got pushed to Warzone the entire time. But that is all to say, yes, it was quite annoying to be micromanaged the entire time and felt like I really couldn't, do my job as far as being a content creator. But I also want to say that I can't let, taint what I feel about the actual quality of the game objectively. So I wanted to make sure that this is coming from a place where I separate those two issues and I don't let that affect how I felt about the actual contents of the game. Now, with that being said, though, let's talk a little bit about all of the game, and we'll start with campaign. All right, I'm not going to spend too much time on this segment because campaign is the only pillar of the game that I've not actually played yet personally, and so I will just say that the premise of the actual campaign is interesting, but given how they handled Black Ops 6, I think it's going to be essentially two things. The gameplay, I'm sure, is going to be unbelievably solid and really good, because I still stand on this. The Black Ops 6 campaign, speaking only from a gameplay perspective, is my favorite in the entire Call of Duty series. Yes, that means all of the classics, all of the newer stuff as well. Black Ops 6 campaign, just the gameplay is phenomenal. The story and the actual characters and narrative, that's where it falls apart for me, and that's where I don't know if I really trust them to handle a Black Ops campaign, because I don't think they really get Black Ops. It's also worth mentioning that Raven primarily makes these campaigns now. We haven't had a campaign made by Treyarch in-house since Black Ops 3, I believe. So if they felt a little different, I always say that the newer Black Ops games kind of feel like an imitation of Black Ops and not really the boundary pushing that, at least the original trilogy was. However, that being said, though, I am interested in this endgame stuff where after you beat the actual linear campaign, you get access to this mode that's an entirely different game mode where you build, craft a character, take on endgame content, very similar structurally to Modern Warfare Zombies, it feels like, except, without the zombies portion. So that is got my attention and will definitely definitely see how that is. But as far as like story goes, I'm not really expecting anything out of the ordinary or anything groundbreaking. I'm very happy to be proven wrong though. We'll see. And I will absolutely give it a fair shake when it does release. But again, I haven't played it myself, so I can't give really any more input than that. But let's move on to talk about multiplayer, which I have played a lot of. So I've played Black Ops 7 multiplayer in 2 different settings. The first at Treyarch Studios and the second at the big COD Next event with like a lot more people. And I will say there were already quite a few significant changes from the first time I played it at Treyarch to even playing it at COD Next. And then there's even more changes from the end of the COD Next event to the open beta that everybody can play. So as far as like changes and things that they've tweaked, they are certainly there, and they've made a lot of improvements since the first time even I've played it. But the core gameplay, I have to say, is solid and intact. I'll start with what I like about the multiplayer, and then I'll get into what I really don't care for about it as well. The first thing is the theme and the setting and the aesthetics. I absolutely love it. It feels and looks like a Black Ops game still. I was very worried that them switching to the new engine that all of the studios are running on now would start to blend the games together a little bit, and Treyarch would lose its signature identity that was always that slightly more cartoony look, maybe even a plasticky feel to the game, but not in a bad way. It was just their signature look and feel. It was distinct from Modern Warfare, and using the new engines runs the risk of them all kind of blending together, which does happen to some degree, but I will say that I can look at Black Ops 7 and it still looks and feels like a Black Ops game. And I know that might sound like super obvious or simple, but it's something they need to get right, and I'm happy to report they did. Also, just personally, I tend to really prefer the slightly more futuristic games. Like, I really love Black Ops 2's multiplayer, and for a lot of that, just, aesthetic and style reasons, I think that they are able to recapture that here as well. The game has a certain style and feel and an identity that they hopefully keep for a long time throughout the year, and, just depending on how they handle this post-launch will really determine how long it feels like a Treyarch Black Ops multiplayer. So as far as identity concerned, it also gets a green light from me. Another thing I really like is the way that the game feels in its details. This includes the weapons, the kill streaks, the field upgrades, the HUD, and even the UI. Thankfully, the UI and the actual user interface when you're in the menu selecting your weapons and create a class is awesome. Finally, we have a modern COD that has a decent UI in game, and we have a HUD in the match which looks and feels signature Black Ops. I'm a big fan of just the stylistic choices when it comes to that. And also, this is something they've heavily tweaked from the first time even I played the MP, is they reorganized the perks so well. The first time we played it was a little rough because there was one set of perks where you would get your bonus that was completely broken and much better than all of the other selections. But it feels like a good blend between Gunsmith and Pick 10. It's not quite really one system or the other. It's basically a hybrid of both, but it feels Black Ops enough and it feels simple to where you can see the remnants of Pick 10. And to me anyways, it feels like the best of that system combined with what I actually like about Gunsmith. There's a lot that I don't like about the Gunsmith stuff, but I feel like it works here, and most attachments are just a straight up positive to your weapon. Some of them do have drawbacks, but it seems like they've pulled back on that attribute to some degree. The other thing though is maps, and this is a big one because with Black Ops 6, I remember the first thing they said was like, hey, our data says that players like small maps, which is true. I mean, statistically, small maps get played a lot, but it's also important to consider why those smaller maps get played. And what they did with Black Ops 6 was basically make every map in the game a tiny map. In Black Ops 7, that's not really the case. We actually have a decent blend of more medium-sized maps. There are quite a bit of small maps. I haven't seen anything crazy big or, anything like that, but there's also a ton of maps coming to the full game. It's like 18 brand new maps or something crazy like that. It's way more than we had on Black Ops 6, way more than we had in Cold War. It's like there's a lot of stuff. So I'm sure there's going to be a decent variety of big, small, and medium maps, which finally will add some variety match to match. And I will say that big picture, I think that Treyarch still knows how to find the fun. I mean, I feel most studios know how to find the fun with multiplayer. I feel like there really hasn't been a bad MP experience since I don't know, maybe this one. But when it comes to its overall feel, it is very similar to Black Ops 6. I mean, it's quite identical to that game, just, with different maps and a different aesthetic and visuals, weapons, stuff like that. But the actual core gameplay, and especially with that Omni movement is coming back, definitely makes it feel a lot like BO6. And I feel like that's a good bridge into talking about the bad with this multiplayer, because you can look at it feeling like BO6 as a good or bad thing, depending on whether you liked or disliked that multiplayer and you wanted to see more of that. I felt like that was kind of inevitable as well, given that Black Ops 6 and 7 were being developed basically at the same time. There's going to be a lot of similarities between the two. However, the big difference with Black Ops 7 multiplayer compared to BO6 might actually be the thing that I dislike the most. And look, I want to say that all types of advanced movement in COD, I've pretty much been very much on board with. I enjoyed AW's jetpack. I enjoyed Black Ops 3's, feathered jetpack movement quite a bit. Probably my favorite MP movement system ever. And also even Infinite Warfare. Like, while I didn't care for that multiplayer overall, the advanced movement I was still a fan of. However, Black Ops 7 had the chance to do something similar to those games, but they didn't take it. Instead of, going for it and including a jetpack in the game, doing something like similar to Black Ops 3's multiplayer, they didn't take jetpack movement, but they gave us this sort of wall jump, which allows you, to kind of double jump off a wall and then change direction in the air, which I guess is cool or whatever. And I was very open to giving this a chance. Ever since the first time I played it, I said I was open to, trying out this new jump and maybe integrating it into my gameplay. But the more I play it, honestly, the more I don't care for it. I just don't think it really needs to be in this game. Like, it makes sense to have a jetpack in Black Ops 3. It makes sense to have a, vertical jetpack in Advanced Warfare because the maps were built for that. But honestly, you can play these maps for the most part and never really use your wall jump, and you can do just fine, which, like, I guess makes sense. You can play Black Ops 3 multiplayer without really using your jetpack a whole lot, but it just feels like it was integrated into that game a lot better. To me, this wall jump just feels like that they had to throw something in there that differentiates it mechanically from Black Ops 6, and that ended up being this little wall hop you can do. I don't hate it, but as far as advanced movement goes, it just feels like they didn't go far enough when there was an opportunity to do something really cool here. I actually would just straight up would have preferred a jetpack at this point, because the wall jump is just simply not it for me. And honestly, it's very rare that I don't champion some kind of advancements to the movement system in pretty much any capacity, but this is the one that I'm still not sold on after hours of gameplay. So maybe it'll grow on me even longer after this, but that is yet to be seen. As of right now, I just don't really like it, if I'm being honest. Another big issue I've had, and this has become especially apparent after playing a lot of the beta, is that the doors stink. I mean, these doors are even worse than like doors that we had in Modern Warfare where you can like bash them open, but these are sliding doors that are pretty much always closed unless somebody is in the direct vicinity close enough to open them. These are absolutely awful. They block grenades, they block lines of sight, and I just don't really enjoy their implementation. I think they make the maps feel a little bit clunky. And speaking of clunky, I also think dexterity is a must-run perk, because otherwise the movement mechanics themselves feel unbelievably clunky, especially the wall jump that they're going for, where your gun kind of goes into this tack stance if you don't have dexterity on, because otherwise you cannot properly ADS while doing any kind of advanced jump or something like that, or even sliding. So MP definitely has some issues. I can absolutely attest to that, but it is still a beta and there is room for some things to change. But other than the super obvious stuff that we've talked about for literally decades at this point, like SBMM, that's pretty much the only thing that I don't really care for in multiplayer. And again, this is subject to change as the year goes on, because maybe they'll do things that really hurt the identity of the game. But as of right now, the time of me making this video, Black Ops 7 MP is pretty fun. I actually like it a lot, other than the gimmicky wall hop that I really gave a chance and tried to make it work and tried to enjoy it, but it's just not really right for me. I don't think it's right for the game, and I'm not really sure if this is ever going to be in another Call of Duty game. I just think that jetpacks at this point would have been the better option, but MP is fun, and it's Call of Duty multiplayer. It doesn't take any big swings. It's the classic formula that everybody has known and loved. And for what it's worth, the moment-to-moment gameplay and the time to kill and the gunplay feels very similar to Black Ops 6. And that's interesting because I know Treyarch was worried about Black Ops fatigue. This is the only time in history that we've had 2 Black Ops games in a row, which has never happened before. And I think the downside of that is that when you're making these two games side by side, you're going to inevitably end up using a lot of the same creative ideas. Again, take away the visuals and the actual time setting, there isn't a whole lot of real meaningful gameplay difference between Black Ops 6 or 7. Remove the wall jump and they are almost the exact same game. I know it probably wasn't Treyarch's call to make two Black Ops games in a row, but when you do that, you don't really get the same leap in innovation and changes that you get from something like Black Ops 1 to 2 or Black Ops 2 to 3 or even 3 to 4 for that matter. I mean, that had its own problems, and I feel like BO4 is kind of a regression of BO3, but at the same time, you still don't get that big change in innovation, whether it works out or not, if you make the games side by side, back to back. And that also leads very nicely into my thoughts and concerns about Black Ops 7 Zombies. All right, so in the limited time that I had to play both Farm Survival at Treyarch, and then obviously it's coming in the beta, and then I did play the full map of Ashes of the Damned at COD Next, I wanted to give my perspective on both of these experiences, because I'm going to start with Survival, as it's the one that I'm a little bit concerned about, and my primary concern with Survival maps is that after you've played one, you've kind of played them all. I mean, Farm Survival is going to be essentially set up the way Liberty Falls was, where it's a very small map, super easy to get set up. You have all of your perks, the Wonder Fizz, the mystery box, wall buys, crafting table, and so on. Just literally everything thrown into the sandbox for you to survive with. And again, that's fine as a small survival map, but the problem is as they add more and more and different POIs from Ashes of the Damned, presumably, they're all going to play the same because all of the same mechanics and content are going to be on these survival maps. There's going to be very little difference between Farm Survival and then like Ashwood Lake or whatever. It's going to be the same enemies, same guns, you know, same strategies. The only difference is really the playable space that you're in, but that's literally all. Now, the survival maps in Black Ops 7 do serve the function that they're kind of supposed to, which is, you know, allow you to jump onto something quickly and grind camos and just shoot zombies and play around with all the stuff that it has to offer. But with no Easter eggs on any of these survival maps, I just think that after a while, because they're all going to play the same, it's going to get really old, and if you've played one, then you've played them all. In Black Ops 2, the way they did survival maps was have a different combination of things that were available. On Bus Depot, for example, there was only a mystery box, making this a very difficult survival experience as there were no perks at all. Or on something like Farm, I'm pretty sure there was all the perks on there, but I don't think you could pack a punch. They would add or remove different things here and there to the survival maps to make the experience of them different, but for Black Ops 7, I just don't see them like taking things out and rearranging things to other survival maps to make them play or feel different, because they wouldn't include all of the content that you can play on each map, obviously. So I just think that the survival maps after a while are going to get really old, and they're going to be virtually the same. That's mostly my biggest issue with them. Maybe they'll do something post-launch and add or remove things from certain survival maps to make the experience feel a little bit more special. Either way, I don't have the same worry with Ashes of the Damned, and I've played a couple of games of this before I got kicked off, but I was able to get a decent amount of experience with this map, and I must say I walked away feeling very positive about that. Honestly, I was quite optimistic about the actual map itself. Given that it's still mostly the same as Black Ops 6 mechanics, I can see people being very let down by that if they were expecting a vastly different game. This is another problem when we have two Black Ops games in a row, is that the games, when you're making them at the same time, are pretty much going to be the same, because you just don't have the time or opportunity to look back retrospectively at your game and then analyze it and be like, okay, what did or didn't work about this and how we can innovate and do better in the next one. They just weren't able to do that with Black Ops 7 as they were making it alongside BO6. And I get that these are basically like sister games, and the reason to buy Black Ops 7, according to them, is for these new experiences to play. But as far as like learning the mechanics and stuff, and even augments carrying over and whatnot, it's like we're going to hit the ground running in Black Ops 7, and I fear that we're going to chew through the content very rapidly, to be honest, especially after we kind of figure out how Ashes of the Damned really plays and how to do all the quests and stuff. Cursed Mode, which is basically basically the replacement for classic mode, is coming to the game, and I can see that breathing some real life into this. And them not outright telling us how to unlock curse mode is wonderful because it actually reintroduces some of that secrecy that was so special and so integral to the identity of the zombies game mode. And we've definitely lost a lot of that in recent years, so it's nice to get a little bit of that back. I'm extremely optimistic about curse mode. I'm also very optimistic about Ashes of the Damned as a map. Once again, the survival maps I think are going to get old after a while and are literally just pretty much camo grinding simulators, but Ashes of the Damned seems like it's going to be a very special experience, and after playing it just a little bit, I could already tell that there was so much more that I haven't seen, and that's a really exciting feeling for a zombies map. Honestly, given what we've seen and what they're planning on doing post-launch after Ashes of the Damned, I have no doubt in my mind that the maps are going to be so cool. I think they're going to be sick as hell the entire year. However, I just frankly think that most people are going to be disappointed in the fact that it plays so much like Black Ops 6. I mean, think about this. Cold War Zombies came out 5 years ago, and that was the introduction of this new zombies formula, or whatever you want to call it. I mean, we still have ammo boxes, we still have weapon rarities, we still have field upgrades, we still have armor. These were all introduced in Cold War Zombies, and since then, over all of these titles, we have not seen any major deviations to this formula. The only thing we've really seen are different maps, which, again, to be fair, a lot of the maps are pretty good. I'd say with almost all of them, I would say, are pretty good. But at the same time, I wouldn't say any of them are absolutely outstanding the way something like Der Eisendrache or Shadows of Evil is, or Mob of the Dead. We don't get these truly unbelievable experiences anymore, and that's because, for the most part, the maps all play the same because their mechanics and their base layer systems are always the same. And I don't expect any major deviations to happen to Black Ops 7, as the maps go on. I don't expect to see any major changes, if at all, or at least until their next game. I just don't think it's going to happen for BO7. And it's not all a bad thing, because if you like Black Ops 6's mechanics, then you'll probably like Black Ops 7. I mean, you're pretty much guaranteed to, as the maps look like they're going to be far more interesting than even Black Ops 6 maps were. But if you don't like the Black Ops 6 core formula, then you may not like this one either. Believe me when I say this, lads, we've given Treyarch a lot of feedback about trying to push the game in a direction that would appeal to not only modern Zombies fans, but a lot of us classic Zombies fans as well, who have been playing since the very beginning, and so many of these experiences that we fell in love with and the things that made them so truly special, we have really done what we can to push for those things to be in these games. Now, obviously, I don't get to make the calls on what happens in Black Ops 7. I can only tell them what I think and, hope that some of these things make it through, and it seems like they have listened to quite a lot of our feedback for Black Ops 7. I mean, compared to where we started and compared to where it is now, it feels night and day. That is all to say that I am super optimistic about Black Ops 7 Zombies insofar as the new round-based maps are concerned. The survival maps, I'm a little bit skeptical about because, as I said, I just think it's going to be like if you've played one, you've played them all, and the only real difference is going to be the playable area that you're in, but otherwise, they're going to play and feel the exact same. Curse mode is the thing that I'm really looking forward to, though, and I feel may be the strongest aspect to Black Ops 7 Zombies if done correctly, and especially the way that it's going to interact with maps post-launch. I feel like there's going to be a ton of replayability there, and especially the kind of replayability that many of us zombie fans are looking for. I really do think Zombies is going to be great. I mean, I have a good feeling about it, but if it's not, I mean, I guess they need us on for task.